In this driving lesson video, I'm going to go through a test report sheet from a candidate who didn't pass their test. I'm going to go through the faults, explain what might have happened, and give you some tips and advice to help prevent it happening again in future. So let's start off by having a general look at the driving test report sheet now. So as you can see, there's no grade 3s, that's the red boxes on the right, but there's plenty of grade 1s and grade 2s. So we can see faults there for position turning right, observation, hazards is there as well, but the main bunch of marks accumulates under progress, especially progress turning right, but there's others as well, like vehicle controls there, and a few other ones then at the end: speed, reverse, and turnabout. So let's have a more detailed look at the driving test report sheet now, starting with the area that caused this candidate the most problems, and that's progress. So the main problem from the sheet was progress turning right. So we're going to have a little look at that here now. The blue car, for example, is preparing for a right turn like that, and the red car here is preparing for a right turn like that. So the blue is coming from a minor to a major, and the red is coming from a main road or a major road into a minor road. So progress is to do with being too slow. So if there's a mark on the sheet for progress turning right, the tester thinks that you were too slow or too indecisive. So he's thinking there maybe that the blue car was possibly had a gap. So say like the yellow car was like really far away, and the blue car could have pulled out sooner on whatever side. There could have been cars here and here. It could be the case that the blue car, I'll just bring the red car back for a second, sorry. It could be the case that the blue car actually did go, but he kind of just dragged it so much that it took him too long to clear the first lane and too long to get into the second lane, his own lane, the left lane, if that is, of course. Maybe due to a lack of acceleration, maybe due to being too slow lifting the clutch, whatever. So it all depends on what the tester thought of the situation, you see. But progress is to do with speed and indecisiveness. In a lot of cases, progress, if we just focus on the blue car here for a second again, progress is related to position. So if the test candidate stopped at the line, only didn't quite stop at the line, and there's a little bit of a gap there, let's bring it back a little bit, that's going to affect your progress as well, because if you're too short, there's a possibility that you're going to be blocked by parked cars, maybe by buildings, by trees and bushes here. So if you do find yourself stopped a little bit short, like the blue car is here, try and just creep up using gentle clutch control just to edge out and aim to stop at the line, and even just gently edge over the line. As long as you don't obstruct any other road users or cars, you can just edge gently over the line, purely to get a better view. So sometimes position is related to progress, because if you're too far back, you're not going to have a good view. So that was from a minor road onto a major road. Now the red car then, similarly what I was saying about the blue car, like if the red car has a perfectly good gap to come in here and the yellow car is there but he's much further back, the red car should be decisive and go for it. Because if the red car is too overcautious, waits too long, it's going to cause problems. The tester wants to see a good, decisive, confident driver taking turns when the gap is there. Again, it could be the case that the person went, but just kind of maybe went too slow, possibly took off in the wrong gear, maybe took off in second by mistake, and instead of just kind of getting in efficiently and reasonably quickly, he or she just kind of maybe struggled and maybe didn't bring the clutch up enough and maybe didn't give it a bit of juice and just dragged it out a bit, you know. So that's the main thing there with right turns from major to minor, and minor out onto major as well. Back to the blue car here as well. So just bring that back a bit. There's nothing wrong with, as I said to you, about creeping out, but also you could actually just, as you're creeping out, you could just let down the windows on either side if you felt that that might give you a better advantage because you might be able to hear traffic in the distance. So whichever side is the more blind side. So if there's more blindness on the right, for example, it'd be a good idea to let down the window on this side in order to help you hear better, and that might make you more confident doing that junction then. Okay, so that's the main thing on progress turning right. There was also progress, one mark on progress turning left as well, and similarly to turning right, it's just a case of, so the blue car's turning left, not taking the opportunity when it's there. Try not to be overcautious. If the gap is there, turning left should be easier because you're only crossing one lane. Again, it could come down to not giving it enough juice, maybe not coming off the clutch quick enough. Now, of course, you don't want to come off the clutch too quick because that's only going to cause the car to jump, but you have to come off the clutch slightly quick in some way, shape or form in order to make the car move off efficiently. And again, creeping out a little bit is no harm, but if the gap is there, you have to go. Similarly on the straight, if it's a good safe road ahead of you and there's no parked cars, no potholes, you should give it some juice and get her up to the speed limit. If it's 50, it's perfectly okay to go 50, and even 1 or 2 kilometers above 50 is absolutely fine. And we also notice marks on progress at roundabouts and at traffic lights. So it's similar. Again, if the gap is there, try go for it. At lights as well, it's good to wait in first gear, because if you're at the traffic lights, waiting in first gear can help you move off quicker, because you don't have to fuss around with the gear stick and go from second to first, or from neutral to first, sorry, when the light goes green. So it's always good to wait in first gear. That gives you a bit of a head start, whether it's at lights, roundabouts, left or right, or any situation really. Next, let's move on to the vehicle controls. We can see on the report sheet that there were problems here under use of the accelerator, gears and clutch. So let's look at those now. So then we have vehicle controls, and firstly accelerator. So we noticed 3 grade 2 marks under acceleration. So it could be a case of, as an example, you're at lights here or some kind of junction like this, and perhaps you moved off without giving it enough acceleration, thereby causing the car to struggle a little bit. It could be the case that the lack of acceleration moving off as well could be related to progress as well, because if you haven't got enough juice, it's more than likely going to affect your progress moving off. It's important as well, if you're changing gears, whether you're moving off or on the way down, that you don't accelerate changing gears, because if you do, it's going to cause excess noise and probably cause the car to jump. It's also important, if the yellow car here is moving off on a hill, that the driver of the yellow car gets enough acceleration so that they can do a proper hill start, because it's very difficult to do a hill start without accelerating, because the car needs that power of the accelerator, that is, in order to keep the hill start smooth and efficient. We also see some marks under the clutch, 2 grade 2 marks under clutch. So that could be, for example, the yellow car coming down, maybe as he or she was coming down to the line, possibly kept the clutch in too long. That would be coasting. Coasting is bad because it makes the car go faster and reduces the engine noise, thereby making you think you're going slower than you actually are. So coasting could be an issue there. Also, though, it could be to do with not getting the clutch in time. So it's important to, when you stop the car at the line like that, that you get the clutch in time so the car doesn't chug or struggle or make a jerking or a jumping noise or sensation, because you want to get the clutch in time before the car struggles, not because the car struggles. Lifting the clutch, then moving off. So it could be the case of, maybe if the yellow car was moving off to go forward or to go left, wherever, that possibly the clutch came up too quick, maybe the handbrake didn't go down in time, and it could be the case that the clutch was a bit quick moving off, so it could have caused a few problems moving off there. And if it was a hill, so if the yellow car was doing a hill start there and the candidate didn't find a proper bite, normally you get the bite with the accelerator and the clutch, so not bringing the clutch up to find a bite could mean that the car could roll back a little bit, which is you know, it's a bit dodgy, you don't want to be doing that. We also had some marks on gears, just a 1 grade 2 mark on gears. So that could be anything. So let's say, for example, the red car is moving off to go straight. The red car has to make sure that he or she starts off in first gear. A lot of people make that mistake if they're at lights or wherever. They forget to check that they're in first gear. They might have stopped in second, which is fine, but you have to make sure you're in first gear or taking off. Now, it might not have been that. It could have been a case that the gear stick got mixed up, maybe. Maybe the person accidentally slipped into fourth instead of second as they were slowing down. Maybe the gear stick got a little bit stuck. Maybe the clutch didn't go in order to change gears. It could have been a number of things, but usually it's to do with getting the gears mixed up, or not getting down the gears, or not taking off in the appropriate gear. So that would be the vehicle controls aspect of the test report sheet covered. And I've other videos, more detailed videos on vehicle controls. You'll see a link on screen and links in the description as well that will go into more detail on all the topics I'm talking about here. Next then is observation. So this is not to be confused with mirrors. Mirrors on the driving test sheet is usually to do with checking your mirrors, one or all of your mirrors depending on the situation, like changing lanes. But observation is more so to do with moving the head, as in looking left and right at a junction and checking your blind spot when moving off. So let's have a little more detailed look at observation now on this test report sheet. Observation moving off. So let's say the red car is about to move off. Let's pull off from the side and proceed like that. Okay, so I'm just going to bring her back to the position here. So the red car intends on pulling away. Now, if the driver of the red car doesn't check his or her blind spot, he or she is not going to see that blue car. That blue car is in the red car's blind spot. And the blind spot, if you're parked on the left, is over your right shoulder. It's crucial that you check your blind spot before you move off. And even if you've checked it, and it takes you a couple of extra seconds to get your bearings right and get the revs or the clutch up, whatever, and you're a little bit slow moving off, you have to recheck the blind spot again, the 3 mirrors in the blind spot preferably again, because the initial blind spot you gave was out of date, the longer it takes for you to move off. So again, a video I've made on that recently, you'll see a link on screen, worth checking out, where I go into more detail on how important it is to move off with proper observation. We also noticed changing lanes as well, observation changing lanes. So if we just bring the blue car back here and we'll just pretend this is a one-way street with 2 lanes going this way. It's so important that you get lots and lots of mirror checks if the red car is changing lanes, that they would do it gradually. So like if you change lanes gradually like that, it's a lot easier to fix the mistake in case someone is flying up on the other lane. Extra mirror checks and a little quick glance over the shoulder as well is no harm, but the quick glance over the shoulder should be quick, again just in case something is in the blind spot, because if both of these 2 cars are moving forward, it looks like the blue car is in the red car's blind spot. So it's important to have your mirrors properly aligned. Give a quick blind spot check before you go across, and just move across gradually, constantly double checking the mirrors as you do so. I have made a more detailed video on changing lanes. You'll see a link on screen and in the description. Please check that video out for a more detailed analysis of observation changing lanes. Observation turning left. We had 2 grade 2 marks under observation turning left. So the yellow car is turning left, for example. So it's important that the yellow car doesn't stop there, but should stop more at the line. So I'll bring it up there now. Stop at the line, and that's going to increase the chances of having a better view up and down the road. Not being afraid to creep out as well to give yourself a better view, and lots of quick looks. And then just as you get a little bit over the line, as you're about to go, it's important to give one last look as well to the right whenever you're turning left, because one look is not enough. You have to keep double checking to make sure there's nothing coming down here at speed, like for example the blue car coming down. So observation turning left, it's all about keeping the head moving. Many quick looks is best, and don't just rely on one look. Always remember, double check to prevent a wreck. Next we have hazards. It appears that this candidate lost marks under reaction to hazards, which is all about planning ahead and anticipating. So let's have a look at that now. Hazards. 2 marks on hazards. It's important to plan ahead and anticipate as best you can. So if you see someone like that running down in a rush near a pedestrian crossing, if you see a pedestrian crossing, flashing lights, signs as well here, pedestrian crossing, school sign ahead. So they're all things to be aware of. You have to be very conscious of your road signs and your road markings so that you can plan and anticipate. So if the driver of the blue car is coming down here and he or she is going too fast, they might not be able to see the pedestrian or the cyclist that could emerge here. If the blue car is going too fast, that person or cyclist has been blinded by these cars. So both the driver of the blue car and the cyclist could be blinded, and that could lead the blue car to suddenly stopping, applying firm pressure on the brake, and that's a poor reaction to a hazard. Then it's all about if you're the driver of the blue car and you see that their parked cars are blocking your view, there's a pedestrian crossing there, and whatever else is happening, you should slow down early and gradually, getting down while braking, getting down to second gear, and always be driving here at a speed that you're able to stop at in case of an emergency, like a cyclist or a pedestrian or a door suddenly opening here. Which is another thing about leaving the appropriate distance, at least a door length, at least 1 car door length here between the parked cars. So hazards could be a lot of things. It could be a reaction to a late reaction to a speed bump. It could be getting too close to parked cars. It could be braking suddenly in a situation like this. It could be not anticipating potholes or roadworks. It's quite general. It could be anything there. But I've made a detailed video on hazards. I'll leave a link in the description, and that'll give a more detailed breakdown of the different types of hazards and obstructions that you could face. But more than likely it's parked cars. That's probably the most common hazard you find on the road in a driving test. The last couple of faults. Position turning left. Let's look at the blue car here. Now, this is a case of a crossroads or even a T-junction. As I can see, I'm just trying to make the blue car slightly slanted down, so the front of the car is a bit more left. It all depends on the width of the road. All situations are different. No one size fits all, as I keep saying. But if you're turning left, you should try and keep close to the left. I'll just move this up for a second. Try and go with the curve here, you see. See that curve? So try and go with that curve going left. It could also be the case that maybe the person was a bit short, or maybe there was 2 lanes. Could have been 2 lanes, and maybe the person didn't go into the correct lane for turning left, or was a little bit central, for example, or something like that. So that's usually what position turning left is anyway. Another area on position turning left, the red car, for example, if he or she gets a bit too close to the curb turning left there, or maybe goes a little bit wide like that, there's a bit of a swan neck, that could be one on position turning left as well. So it could be a number of things. That's just some potential areas where that fault could have occurred. Speed limit, 1 grade 2 mark under speed limit. So it appears that the person was going a little over the speed limit. Now most learner drivers on the test wouldn't intend on going too fast, so probably accidentally just went too fast or didn't pay attention, or perhaps forgot the speed limit. So if you're driving on a nice straight road, it is good to get up to the speed limit if it's safe, if there's no parked cars and if it's a good road. But it's very important that you watch your signs. Speed limit signs should be frequent enough, so keep an eye on the signs and try and obey them. And remember, if you've seen a 50-kilometer sign, it's 50 kilometers until you're told otherwise. If in doubt, it's usually best to revert back to 50, especially if you're in town, as the test will be in town most of the time. Reverse around the corner then. The person here got a mark under competency on the reverse around the corner. Now I go into that in more detail in my reversing videos, but 2 or 3 areas where that could be, if we just look at the yellow car here. So competency, Perhaps the driver went a little bit wide going around the corner, like this. So if that's the corner there, so maybe it went a little bit wide, like that, probably because they didn't steer enough. Perhaps they turned too soon, clipped the curb there, maybe turned too fast here and came into the curb there. Or maybe we're doing okay but just got that little bit close at the end and maybe just clipped or grazed the curb at the end. Hitting the curb is not a big problem. It's if you mount the curb, that's where the problem arises. Perhaps the clutch control was a letdown. Maybe the car was going too fast. But usually if it's competency, it's to do with going too far away or finishing too far away or clipping the curb in the early part or the middle or the end part. That's usually where competency comes under for the reverse, going too wide or hitting the curb. Another mark then, the turnabout. So a turnabout is it's like a 3-point turn. It's like, so if the red car was to go like that, then go back, and then go forward, that's a turnabout. Observation. So basically the tester's saying that when the person was doing the turnabout, either at the start or at a point at which he or she stopped, the person didn't look around enough. On the turnabout, it's very important to keep the head moving. Constantly be looking around as you're moving, and especially when you stop, to get a good idea for any children or cyclists that could be around. It's very important to show good observation on the turnabout. Try not to look down. I often find in lessons a lot of people look down at the gear stick or even look down at the handbrake. It's like a habit. Keep your eyes on the road, because looking down is not good for observation. So that's more than likely what that was. But it was just one grade 2 anyway there. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. And don't forget to let me know in the comments section some of your issues or problems that you may have had on previous tests. If you think you can benefit from this channel, please hit that subscribe button. And don't forget to hit the bell notification as well, so you can be notified whenever I make a new driving lesson video. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you soon.